Hey everyone, it's Kyle's fucking Chickens, and this is going to be a Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones series video on Azor Ahai, Nyssa, and why I believe Jon Snow and Daenerys will fill these roles respectively. This video is going to be a little bit different as we take a look at the true meanings of the word Nyssa and Azor Ahai, as well as the stories within our own human history that influenced George when writing the Song of Ice and Fire. If we dig deeper, I believe we can predict the ending of the story for Daenerys and Jon Snow. Let's start off with the word Nyssa. What does Nyssa mean? Nyssa has its origin in the African Hausa language, and it is used largely in English and in Hebrew. In the African Hausa language, Nyssa's meaning is a remembered loved one, but the Nyssa of the Hebrew origin means to test. There was a certain point where rabbis were translating the Bible into Hebrew and understood the difficulty of keeping the biblical interpretation pure to God's word instead of creating a more superficial understanding of the text. Of course, scholars disagree on the interpretation, as we see in our own human history, people disagree on our own Bible's teachings, but one thing is clear, is that they agreed it was associated with the word Nis, which is associated with the word banner and or miracle. The implication is that when God tries someone, the one that is tried and that is going to distinguish himself or herself would stand out like a banner. As we see within Game of Thrones, banners are of supreme importance as they distinguish themselves with symbols and words. Apart from these associations, it was also connected to the verb nasa, which means to elevate or lift up. Being tried by God means being elevated and being shown as an example to others. It's clear that Jon will be tested and will have to make very difficult decisions to unite the realms of men, and he will have to show them that the true threat is coming to end all life. When these philosophers and rabbis were disputing these meanings, Sadia, a philosopher, had difficulty comprehending that God tries man. In Genesis 22:11, the Galileans said that the word means to show Abraham's righteousness to mankind, adding, "Now I know." It was modified by Sadia into "Now I have made known." Within our story, we have a character that is told he knows nothing, but as we've seen over the past few seasons, the evolution of his character suggests from his experiences and his loss, he knows quite a lot. The gods are testing Jon Snow. To test is to learn, and to know. We hear Maester Aemon say, "Kill the boy, Jon Snow, kill the boy, and let the man be born," which totally relates to him coming of age and conquering his trials. It refers to enlightenment, but there's more to it than that. I stated earlier that we would be exploring not only the word Nyssa, but also the etymology of Azor Ahai. Azor is a biblical name and it means helper and or court, and the name Ahai is a Marathi name meaning mother. I believe that this can be connected to the word Misa, which is connected to Daenerys. We know that Daenerys has been very helpful in the freeing of slaves, and we know that Jesus was also very helpful to the small folk as he believed in the fair treatment of others. Daenerys speaks about breaking the wheel, and I do believe that Azor Ahai is related to Daenerys. One thing that did catch my eye through research of other religions was the story of Indra and the Asura Ahi. In the early Vedic religion, the Vritra is a serpent or dragon, the personification of drought and the adversary of Indra. In Hinduism, the Vritra is identified as an Asura, and Vritra was also known in the Vedas as Ahi, also known as snake. He appears as a dragon blocking the course of the rivers and is heroically slain by the hero Indra. The Asura are mythological beings sort of like demigods, and the people pray to these beings to be helpful and bring favor to drive off demons who presented themselves in the night. It was said they would sing hymns praising these deities. In Hinduism, Atri, or Vritra, means snake, and Vritra was also known in the Vedas as Ahi of Zoroastrianism mythology and is said to have had 3 heads. So it makes sense that George has based a lot of his story on Mithras and the ancient Vedic religion. Daenerys is also connected to Asur Ahi, as she has many titles and is worshipped in the Lord of Lights religion, which is closely related to Zoroastrianism, which believed the Asur Ahi was a good deity. Now, in some of the texts, Azur Ahi is believed to be evil and is slain by the hero Indra, and it causes a flood which ends the drought across the land. I believe we can associate the drought to the long night. So in this case, I don't believe that Daenerys is evil. However, she will have to die for the long night to end, and magic will have to cease to exist, and the cancelling out of fire and ice will have to happen for life to flourish again in the realms of men. But what happens when fire and ice are together? It creates water, and it's very interesting because the goddess closest associated with water is named Danu, meaning literally rain or river. But in order for Jon to use Daenerys as the ultimate sacrifice, Daenerys has to become something equal to the world to be sacrificed. And if Daenerys is to die, the sacrifice has to feel heavy, or it can't be a bittersweet ending. I believe that Daenerys will go through a similar test to when it comes to choosing love and duty or destiny. We talked about how Nyssa relates to the word banner, and Daenerys' mission and her goal has been to restore the ancient seat of her house in King's Landing to its previous glory. She is going to have to make a difficult decision once again, just like we saw her make in the House of the Undying, choosing not to touch the Iron Throne, but instead going north to the Call of her Dragons and towards the tent with Rhaego and Drogo. This time I believe she will have to make the choice of fulfilling her destiny to become Queen of the Seven Kingdoms and raising those banners, or heading to the north to deal with the true threat of the White Walkers. This reminds me a lot of what happens with Abraham in the Binding of Isaac, and when Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son, Abraham lifted his eyes and looked and beheld, and it was a ram caught in the thicket by his horns, and Abraham went, took the ram, and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. We can think of her not touching the Iron Throne as her lifting her eyes, and her turning her attention to the screams of her dragons and offering up the warmth and love of Rhaego and Drogo as the sacrifice. We've seen Daenerys have to make a multitude of difficult decisions, and I believe if she is to die, it will be one of the most defining moments of the series. So let me explain why I believe Daenerys has to die in order for Jon to save the realms of men. The story of Azor Ahai says, darkness lay over the world and a hero, Azor Ahai, was chosen to fight against it. To fight against the darkness, Azor Ahai needed to forge a hero's sword. He labored for 30 days and 30 nights until it was done. However, when he went to temper it into water, the sword broke. He was not one to give up easily, so he started over. We know that eventually in time, he called for his wife Nyssa and asked her to bare her breast. He drove his sword into her living heart, and her soul combining with the steel of the sword created Lightbringer, the Red Sword of Heroes. I believe that Jon and Daenerys will marry, and in this moment in time she will become queen. And we spoke of banners earlier, and it's of the utmost importance because it means she has established roots once again for House Targaryen within Westeros. Of course, marrying Jon strengthens her position, but it will be time to get down to business to the matter, as Jon bending the knee and them falling in love will have to go on the back burner. Jon and Sam will meet again, and as we know, Sadia the Philosopher, who is our Samwell Tarly, will tell the story of Azor Ahai to Jon. At this point, the wall will have fallen, and my guess is that Jon and his forces will have to retreat from Winterfell to near Harrenhal and near the Trident. It will become clear that the situation is grim and they cannot win without a miracle, and this is when he realizes that he has to kill Daenerys in order to create Lightbringer. We know the word Nyssa has many meanings, including the word miracle, and we hear Aemon say that duty is the death of love. We hear Benjen say you don't know what you would be missing if you just gave up on love when he wanted to give up everything to join the Night's Watch. So an impossible decision will have to be made, and it will be miraculous that he can even come to a decision at all. I believe the bittersweet ending that George is talking about is that Jon will have to understand this love, and this is the test to know true love, but will have to make a sacrifice so great to do his duty as the prince that was promised to save the realms of men. He has to become the last dragon to end the Long Night, and instead of the term "You know nothing, Jon Snow," this will become the Song of Ice and Fire, and it will be sung, something that will ring true in Jon's mind for the rest of his days. I would like to thank all of you so much for watching, and want to make sure all of you leave your amazing comments and thoughts if you think Daenerys will have to die for the realms of men to be saved, and if you think Jon Snow will have to make this sacrifice. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button, as the support really helps out the channel. And please subscribe to the channel by clicking on that box of crispy fried chicken in the bottom right hand corner of the screen to become a chicken nugget and a member of the chicken coop. And remember, if you don't like this video and subscribe, I'm gonna have to eat every fucking chicken in this place. 7 blessings, everyone.